Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're in the right place at the right time. Today is Tuesday and it is 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for another informative show today. So I want you to get on the phone, call somebody. If you want to know a lot about the solar industry, now's the time to tune in because we got an expert on the line today. Today is his first time coming on the show. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. And I would just want you to go call somebody. Tell them, hey, you don't want to miss this show. So as always, I like to give a shout out before I start every show to my mentor, Dr. Hunt. Dr. Hunt and I have been traveling in life together for 30 plus years. And out of the 30 plus years that we've been traveling together, he has been a blessing to both me and my family, as well as I have been a blessing to him and his family. Now, one of the reasons why I talk about my mentor, excuse me, the way that I do, is to encourage you all to understand the value of a mentor. A mentor is someone that can help you navigate through this thing called life. You know, life has a lot of twists and turns, ups and downs, and things of that nature. So you got to have somebody that you can trust, somebody that you can count on, that can help you navigate. And then they can help you help others to navigate. So I emphasize the fact about a mentor. I have several. So I want you to get a mentor, and then I want you to get a show so you can shout your mentor out. Okay? So think about it. Every time I go live, I talk about my mentor. All right? I want to invite you guys to go over to my website, ask-dr-ron.com. When you get over there, I want you to browse around, take a look around, and check out some of my advertisers. All of my advertisers help make it possible for me to do what I do. Without them, it would be very difficult for me to do it. So I have a listing of a few of my advertisers right here. I'm going to skip the first one because we're going to talk about them in detail with our guest today. But I'm going to go right to the second one, Portuguese and Sam. Portuguese and Sam brings in some of the best wines and spirits from all over the world. If you don't know about Portuguese and Sam, you're missing out. Everything that he brings in is exclusive. You can't get it in any store anywhere. And I promise you, if you click on any of the banners or any of the flyers and go to their website, you can make an appointment to go do a wine tasting so you can find out what your new favorite wine or cognac is going to be. And I'm going to encourage you, this is a tip, buy a case of it. Because when it's gone, it's gone. I'm telling you, you won't be able to find it and you'll be disappointed like, dang, I went through that much wine already. So I'm telling you, take it from me, get a case. You'll be happy that you did. And that way you can go and enjoy your wine or your cognac or whatever spirit as often as you so desire. So Prince Hunter Financial Group. Now, the Prince Hunter Financial Group is educating people in understanding about the stock market, the Forex market, and they are helping people to understand what they can do to be able to create financial independence for their families. So the Prince Hunter Financial Group has a special promotion that's going on. If you tell them that you heard about it here on this show, you'll be able to get 4 free classes. Now, some people may have a lot of knowledge about the stock market, and some people may not know nothing at all. So it's a great start to get some questions answered, to be able to investigate into the stock market. And as you know, the stock market goes down and it goes up, and a lot of people are making money right now. So why not you? So get into that class so you can understand what's going on and how it works. It'll be an education that you'll never be sorry that you took. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, this is his first time coming on the show. We have one of the owners, founders, brothers that are part of the Sir Synergy family. And we get Osei all the time. So today we have the other partner on the show for the very first time, Senya. Did I say your name right?
Senyo, Senyo.
Senyo. Oh man, too much emphasis on the back part. I was gonna
No
make you
problem.
Spanish. But welcome to the show, my brother. Welcome to
I
the show.
appreciate you having me. Thank you much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, I want to first just say I loved what you opened with around the power of mentorship. I think it's really important, especially for the Black community, those that have built capacity to engage in nurturing those that are coming up, through mentorship. So, the fact that you shout out your mentor on every show to continue to emphasize that point, I think is one of like the hallmarks of building sustainable communities. So, I just wanted to tip my hat, to that comment to start out the day.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I do
Yep.
it every time, because I never know if a person is his first time to the show or if he's a regular. I never know. Once the show has been recorded, people can see the show anytime. So I always like to emphasize the fact that if you don't get nothing else out of this show, understand that we all need mentors. We need somebody who has traveled this thing called life and that can help us that are coming up behind them. And
Absolutely.
I can't emphasize it enough. I had a friend of mine call me up and he said, "Man, I love it. I love it. Keep doing it. Don't stop doing it." Because if nothing else happened, there's statistics that say that people only watch the first 3 or 4 minutes of a broadcast. I don't get into
Mhm.
statistics like that. But
Right.
if they get into the first 3 or 4 minutes of the show and they catch that message, they don't need nothing else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, if they stick around, they're going to get a bonus.
Indeed.
you
Indeed.
know?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you're just spot on, with that, and you want to take some of the guesswork out of life. I know life is an adventure, but if somebody has traversed the path that you have set yourself on, if you're really committed to excellence and succeeding, then having that mentor is just it's key, to that path. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, once again, welcome to the show for the first time.
thank you, thank you.
And like I always tell people, Sir Synergy is one of our sponsors. So, we talk about you guys on a regular basis. But before we start talking about the company, from your words and your perspective, let's hear a little bit about you, man. I know you. In the green room before we started, you said you were born in the United States, so I guess they can't kick you out, But
Nah, they can try, they can try, but
yeah, but let's talk about you and your family, man. Let's hear something about you.
for sure, man. I was born to two Ghanaian immigrants, Ghana, West Africa. I was born on the south side of Chicago at the University of Chicago. My parents lived on the low end, because that's what you call it, the low end. Um, and at that time, as 1982, so 42 years ago, It was a different time in that part of the community. Uh, their thought was that at 2 years old, it made sense to send me to Ghana, where the majority of my extended family was my grandmother, cousins, uncles, etc. That way I could learn custom, culture, protocol, and, most importantly, language. Um, I am an Aigbe man, so I'm from the Ewe tribe, which is in northeastern Ghana. That's like, right on the border with Togo land. And, after some time, I was I was brought back to the U.S. for schooling, and by that time, my parents had moved out of the city and into the west suburban area. So
Yeah,
um,
can I interrupt you and ask the question?
of course,
So
of
you
course,
say Ebiland,
Eve, yeah, yeah,
Eve,
yeah,
Eve.
Eve,
Now, yeah.
perfect.
Now we hear in Ghana that the Ashanti is a dominant tribe. So
Hmm.
how close are
Hmm.
you, region wise, to those that we hear about more about the Ashanti?
Yeah, I mean, if you Ashanti or Akan, they are population-wise, the most I would say prevalent in the country, and they occupy some territory, quite a bit of territory in Accra, Kumasi, and the like. Um, but even within that that Akan fold, there are like multiple
Various
tribes within
tribes.
the tribe.
Right. Yeah.
So you dealing with like Kwewu people and all this. I mean, so let's put it this way. If you start at Accra, the further east you go, the closer you get to where Eves and Akans are like mixing.
Okay.
Okay, so it gets to a point where our communities are so close where maybe you'll have people that are like, bilingual or have that mix of culture and tribe in them. Um, but the Eves are more so northeast, like mountainous region inhabitants. So that is where my people come from. It's very cool and mountainous and airy. Where I'm from, not what you think about when you think of West Africa. Typically people think of beaches and hot, humid environments and densely populated metropolis. But our experience in the Volta region is much different than that.
Yeah, but you have three seasons up there. You got the summer, the you do have winter, and then you also have the monsoon, right?
So, okay, the way it was described to me is like you have rainy season, you have dry season, and then you have what we call Hamatan. That's Hamatan is like to the north of us is the Sahara Desert. And as the winds blow in from the Sahara, like there's a dust that settles in like our areas, all the way down to Accra. It's that way. So that is a season all by itself, you know. So if you want to call it three seasons, yeah, rainy season, dry season, and then Hamatan.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, man. Keep going, bro. I just had to clarify.
Oh no,
I do know a little something, something. I
no.
ain't,
You're not just a doctor in name alone, right? You're a world living,
Yeah, yeah,
world
yeah,
living.
yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, so that's what it is, and obviously, our people, our ancestors, and even those today, like their life is well fashioned to the seasons, right? Because of the agricultural implications, the ability to be industrial in whatever you're doing was predicated on what the weather would allow. So, um, you know, weather is like really at the forefront of our consciousness for a host of reasons, but survival, environmental, industry, etc. It's all relevant.
Yeah, so the Volta region would be considered more inland than coastal.
Yeah, it's more inland. It's more inland than coastal. There are some parts of the Volta region that run down, like Quetta and those areas, they run down to the coast. So if I were to describe it, it's like east. But the further east you go, it's like you're running into Togo. So it starts to go north towards Lake Volta and such, and that's the mass of the Volta lands is actually inland. But we do have some beach, not as much as the other tribes, but we have some.
Yeah, and then the fish would be more freshwater fish instead of
Oh
saltwater.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Lots of tilapia, lots of grouper, lots of. I mean, it's the seafood. Well, you've been to Ghana, so you
yeah,
can
oh yeah,
you can speak for it. But the
yeah,
seafood is, you
fresh.
can't get it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't
very
get it
fresh.
anywhere else like that.
Yeah, yeah, very fresh. I've been blessed to have been to Kamasi, Cape Coast.
Oh wow.
Yeah, where's the university? That's in
Yeah, that's tech in Kumasi.
yeah, Kamasi. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
KNUST, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's interesting. One of my adventures, and I told you this, before we went live. I was there for the very
Mhm.
first Panafest in 1990, and
Now, describe Panafest. I'm not aware of what that is. What is
okay,
Panafest?
Panafest was an invitation to all the people of color all over the world to come
Mm,
home
mm,
to enjoy a concert,
mm.
and for the, music. At the very first Panafest, we performed. I was actually traveling with, and get this, African dance company called Mantu.
Whoa, whoa,
Mantu Dance Theater.
whoa.
We traveled to Ghana to bring African dance to Africa. That's
My
deep.
goodness. So
That's
you do African dance?
nope, not at all. I'm not even gonna let you think that. I do
Are you?
tech.
No, I thought I had you, man. I was gonna say I'm gonna get this guy. I'm gonna get
I
this
do
guy.
tech. Okay, production manager, stage manager, sound,
Man.
lights, anything dealing
We
with
we
tech,
we
I
would
got you.
we were about to go viral just now. That we're just about to go viral.
Yeah, but and during that trip in 1990, the historical significance of what was taking place was
Mm.
it was the very first parliamentary election in Ghana.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
so that was
Okay.
when General Gerald Rollins became
Oh
president,
yeah,
became
Jerry
the,
John.
yeah, not president but prime minister.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they
Mm-hmm.
elected the very first cabinet, or
Wow.
to run the government. Now, many
Wow.
people don't know this, but he was a general over the military.
Yeah. Pilots.
Yep, and then he ran a lot of Europeans out of there, because they tried to come in, take over, and he had a reputation of being a very hard nosed type guy.
Yeah. My grandfather was very close to him. They thought because he was half white, he was gonna be lenient on the white folks, but it was actually the opposite. That he was he was harder than them than anybody else.
Right,
So
right.
he's very militant minded and
Very militant. Yeah.
really loved Ghana.
Right, he did. Yes, he
Very
did.
in line with I guess socialist or communist politics.
Right.
Thinking about the whole as opposed to rampant.
To
That's
be
right.
elected. Of course, the election was stolen. In case you ain't never heard that before, it
Of
was so
course.
funny, man. During that election, they had found boxes and boxes of uncounted ballots throughout the villages, throughout the region. So it was a countrywide election, and of course, there were those that were in opposition. There was a professor that was his number one candidate, and he felt cheated, of course, because he didn't get a chance to, be a part of going into office. So
Yeah.
I actually, part of my archives, I have an interview with him when I was there.
Wow.
So that's some of my archives
With JJ or with his opponent?
with his opponent. Yeah,
Okay.
and when we were there, I actually stayed after our commitment to perform had ended. I stayed there till New Year's of that following year, and the United States were very happy to see that they had an election, that
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
successful.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as time went on, nobody could beat General Rollins. They just couldn't beat him.
No.
And one of the keys about the country itself was, even going back, even before Gerald Rollins came into place, was that the Pan Africanism movement generated there in Ghana.
Oh yeah.
Kwame,
Nkrumah.
yes, and
Yeah.
he was very instrumental in uniting, trying to unite, Africanism to be control of their own destiny. And
Big
even to
time.
this day, fast forward in 2025, it's reinsurgence.
Mhm.
There's a lot of conversation about African countries joining together
Big
and
time.
with their riches and their minerals and their oil and everything that they have there,
You
and
you're
then
in, you're
trying
in
to
tune with
end,
what's going on.
yeah,
You're in
trying to
tune.
end poverty in their country.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, I love Ghana. It was a beautiful place.
Good.
The people
Good.
were beautiful.
Good.
The food was outstanding.
Yes.
And I tell
Ghana,
you,
Ghana is a love.
I made friends very easily over there. So it was a beautiful thing. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so you come from a very, culturally rich family
Yeah.
and country. So
Yes.
that's a
Yes.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So how did you wind up getting in business with Osei? Now that's the $10 million question right there.
I would say it's my brother, man. So with that background that you mentioned, just being um culturally, I guess, minded, village minded. When I got back to the US, like I didn't leave Ghana back home. I brought those same kind of like ideals with me, and there's pockets as I'm sure you're familiar in the Chicagoland area. There's pockets of the city and individuals that are very aligned with African principles, ideals, ways of living,
Yep, absolutely.
um, spiritual belief systems, self-defense, self-determination, etc. So, like naturally, I gravitated to those spaces because it reflected, you know, my upbringing and my values. I actually started um, doing some instruction with a school on the south side, 79th and Ellis. There's Betty Shabazz International Charter School. I was training under one of my mentors who is since passed on. She's an ancestor now, but um, you know, Mama Roberta Ingram. She brought me into the village, and through that, I was able to meet a few, I think, brothers in the struggle. That felt like okay. let's get our collective kind of like talents together in one room and point them at a specific mission, and um on one day Ose happened to be, in the space with me when that introduction was made, and we've been kind of thick as thieves, ever since. So that's been.
You still there? Hello? We lost you for a minute there. Oh, he must be talking to somebody else. Y'all stand by for a second. He's talking to somebody else.
Yeah, sorry about that. Some
No
folks
problem.
just
I
came.
thought we had lost you.
Yeah, no, they just came in and started having a meeting in front of me. I said, "We are live recorded, man, on Dr. Ron's show. That's a no-go right now." So
Okay.
they were kind enough to see themselves
Okay.
outside. I
Okay.
apologize
No
for the
problem. No
brief.
problem. I thought you had dropped out. I say he's not moving. He must have froze up.
No, no, no. I was just shocked that they could hear the interview happening and still decided to have the
Okay.
conversation.
All
So
right.
yeah,
I got
yeah.
you. I got you.
Okay, so yeah, I was brought together with Osei through the village, the Chicago, Africana village, and we had a lot of areas of interest, of mutual interest. He's very tech savvy, and I'm also into tech. His area of expertise is network engineering and computer science. I come from electrical engineering and power distribution. And
Okay.
as time has kind of like gone on, those worlds have kind of built a symbiotic relationship in the industry, period. So, in a lot of ways, outside of like culture and our like our politics and our belief systems, we kind of married up on our kind of like professional pathways as well. So that's how
Absolutely.
him and I connected.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that leads me to my next question. How long has Surf Synergy been in existence?
So January 1, 2021. So about 4 years and some change we've been going. The statistic is that most businesses uh, you know go out of business in 5 years. So I'm looking at my watch now to see,
Yeah.
and I don't think we're slowing down anytime soon.
Well,
So we're thankful to the universe, to God, and the ancestors for that.
yeah. And not only are you not slowing down, you've evolved.
Oh yeah,
When I first started, talking about this on my show, Osei was solar panels and helping people understand the solar panel industry.
right.
And I keep referencing Osei because he's been on here talking about you guys so much, you
And he's
know.
a good brother, man. Whenever you drop that man's name, good things are gonna happen. So
Right,
I'm not mad
absolutely.
at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as the evolutionary process of Surf Synergy up to 2025, you are now teaching, educating, certifying, and working on major projects throughout, not just this country but other countries as well. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell us how that's going. What's going on with that?
Yeah. I mean, so I will. I haven't talked about my professional background, but I'll just kind of back up the truck because it informs why I'm approaching things this way, right? So I'm a trained electrical engineer. I worked for GE General Electric building power systems from Hobbs, New Mexico, as far as east as Savannah, Georgia. So like pretty much half the country I covered. whether it was building power plants from scratch or servicing them in the event that there was an outage, right? So that was my worldview. And when I graduated college, I went to SIUC, Carbondale. I was hired by GE, and they sent me to Schenectady, New York, which is considered GE University. So you have all the old generators, all the old turbines from, the Westinghouse days, Thomas Edison, like all that stuff is up there, right? And you're in an 8-month course where they're basically reprogramming you the GE way. Forget what you learned at college. This is how we do it at GE. In that time period, though, in Schenectady, I was surrounded. It was almost like a if you're familiar with like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it was like a Willy Wonka experience, but around energy. So all like the premier technology that was coming out was just available for us to play with and touch and get familiar with and break, fix again, those kind of things. And that made an indelible mark on my pathway as a professional. And there was a point during my training that students about 15 years old, I would say like the average age of the students were brought in from Poland as part of some kind of like exchange program. So for about you know I would say 8 weeks in my 8-month training experience, these Polish students that were high school age were doing the same training that I was doing as a double E grad. Um, and I never let go of that. It just stuck out in my mind that because of maybe a relationship or an opportunity, or really like access is the word that I'm looking for. These young folks would have an approach, an understanding, a confidence, an entitlement about, this space that I felt like, you know, folks that looked like me and that came from areas and backgrounds that I had didn't have that exposure to. So I had made like a personal pact with myself that whenever I was able, I would put myself and my people in position to be able to access emerging technologies. So fast forward, till today, even though we did start this energy by educating the public, I feel like education is a big part of um, like market adoption. You want your customer, you want your client base to be knowledgeable about the technology, knowledgeable about its benefits, knowledgeable about its limitations, and make a really educated decision about, moving forward with a solution. I think solar is not new, it's been around for quite some time. As part of our course, we actually chart like the history of solar from like all the way back through ancient times. So that's it always kind of like gets the students' eyes to pop open when we pull out slides of the Baghdad battery, and folks are seeing like that. Even some of our ancient ancestors were dealing with this technology, well before Sun Run and whoever you would look
Mm-hmm.
at as the primary solar provider was dealing with it. Um, but yeah, I think education is key, and education and knowledge, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding is a way for not just individuals but a community at large to sustain itself and to thrive. So whatever capacity we needed to educate the customer base on, we did, with the understanding that that would lead to some projects and that would lead to some doors being shut.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is to continue to have the conversation, to circulate it, And here we are today. A lot of the folks that we had conversations with 4 years ago when we started are now coming around the curve because they're having these conversations in other spaces and they feel better tooled for those conversations because of the foundation we laid with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think if you're strong enough to stick it out and you have enough vision to understand that the market will come around, there's something to be gained, and I think we are just at the beginning stages of taking off, in that direction. So what does that look like? In order for a new industry to stand itself up, um, now I'm talking like programmatically. Like if Illinois says through, FEJA or CEJA, right, Future Energy Job Act or Climate Equitable Jobs Act, that we want to through incentive programs, through grants, through ratepayer structures, provide clean and renewable energy in a way that's going to be equitable, so that we can service both environment and community all in one shot. That's a tall order. Like if you look at any policy, and like we can start in California. Like California was one of the early adopters of this stuff, and their legislation is not as progressive as ours,
Mm.
right? Like yeah, they've been on the environmental pathway, but our focus on making sure um, that the clean energy projects prioritize the people that
Mm.
are traditionally marginalized and left out of this equation, I think makes Illinois second to none. And if you're in the industry, you know that there are folks from California, from New York, from Colorado, from North Carolina that are in Illinois to try and participate in, I would call it the gold rush, but I guess it's the green rush
Right.
right now. So I think it's a blessing to be in the space, and we're looking to be sustainable and looking to be a household name, in the Illinois area
Absolutely.
for
Now,
sure.
um, I'm gonna ask a crazy question. You may not be able to answer this off the top of your head,
Okay,
but I know you just did two classes back to back, one in Rockford and you're doing one at your headquarter location. How many
right.
people would you say you have helped train up to this point in time in this industry?
I would say close to 300.
Okay.
Yeah, 300 folks. Yeah, and you know, I guess the biggest part of it is the responsibility of, again, we go back to like mentorship, right? You're talking about folks that are coming out of the foster care system, folks that are coming out of the recidivism community, folks that are coming out of the veteran community,
Mm-hmm.
folks that are coming out of, folks that are just coming out of high school and maybe a little bit wayward, like, taking some time to get their footing or find their way. When they come into our space, it's more than just, reading off the slides and things of that nature. We get to know them. In some cases, we get to know their families. And it's really the issues that are outside of the class that impact, um, you know, the future for these people. So that 300 is not just a statistic like that. We have like 300 family members,
Mm.
that then came through Synergy. So it's a different level for us.
That's beautiful. Now let me ask you
Hmm.
another question. Out
Hmm.
of those 300 that you have
Hmm.
worked with, do you see
Hmm.
them as establishing businesses for themselves or employable with somebody?
So it's a mixed bag,
Okay.
right? So you have some folks, and you know, business is not an easy endeavor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the type of mentor that is going to rip the band-aid off very quickly, right? So I will, some folks have the capacity for business, and some folks do not.
Gotcha.
right? And I think that we need to be, if we're going to be helpful to our community, we have to have these very real discussions around what it takes to not just start a business, but sustain a business, right? Like, if you have a, if you're a student of mine and you're talented, um, and you're somewhere, let's just put you in the 80% range, right? You're making B's in class, but whenever there's something administrative to do, you're always the last one to turn it in,
Mm,
right? That kind of thing. Um, I'm not going to advise you to go into business, right? Because there's that sharpening that you need in order to be able to sustain the business. Licenses that you have to keep up with. There's insurance that you have to keep up with, right? So I have these very real discussions with folks that say they want to get into business, because sometimes saying you want to be in business is just the cool thing to say these days. Like, everybody's an entrepreneur, everybody's, that kind of thing. I work for myself. I don't have no boss. I don't answer to nobody. And this, you don't answer to them bills though. You know, that's what you will answer to,
and them
right?
hunger pains.
Them hunger pains is look, so you need to
Yeah.
be able to have a real conversation with yourself, look yourself in the
Right.
mirror and say, okay, these are the skills that I have today. And even if going into business is a goal for you, ultimately
Right.
we can work together to chart a path to actually develop the skills appropriate for you to not just start the business but sustain. I don't want to just see businesses get registered. I want, 10,
Yeah.
15, 20, 30 years from now, you still around. So it's a
Yeah.
difference.
Absolutely. So
You
now,
know.
with you guys originally starting out with educating people about the solar panel, uh, being the end user, and now
Hmm.
evolving into educating people and getting them licensed and certified, do you have the
Hmm.
projects on the drawing board to be able to sustain 300 people, 500 people that you're training, be able to put them to work in the industry? They always, and I'm just going to use a scenario from way back in the day, okay, about 20
Hmm.
years ago. They were
Hmm.
educating people that look like us
Hmm.
in the weatherization program.
Right.
Where are they now?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weatherization, was a big thing. We're gonna teach these people. We're gonna put them to work. And now, I think the only organization that even offers a weatherization program is CETA,
It's
and
either.
and then and then they make you wait 15 years to be a repeat customer. So all the
Exactly.
people, I mean, it was like hundreds and hundreds of people, that were in that educational process, and then all of a sudden the
Mhm.
bottom fell out. So,
Yeah. Again, I think that there's a few discussions that are happening right now, right? Just based off of what you're saying. And one is, the political discussion, right? There's the political charge to service the community, service environment, and if you don't do anything, there will be hell to pay from your constituents, right? So there's the driver there. Um, Once legislation is put into motion, right? The idea is you would want that implemented. But what I have what I have some empathy for, I would say, is the arc or the life cycle between the time and period legislation is signed to when the infrastructure internally and government, right, to
mhm,
actually roll and implement those programs are put into place. Okay. In parallel to that, industry has to be ready to meet the required capacity, right? So you have a new industry, new contractors that have never worked on this stuff before. You're talking about multi-million dollar projects. there's going to be um, a bit of gestation on all sides in order for rubber to meet road. And I think that, you if you're in the industry, but if you're outside the industry, you're looking at it and saying, hey, like there's legislation going into force, there's all this like marketing and messaging around clean energy and opportunity. My little nephew gets trained. He's got the certificate. When's he gonna get to work? Like all these things are part of it. But fortunately, there's an ecosystem, and everybody's in their respective lane doing their part to make sure that the program is stood up. And then I think what we also have to understand is um, markets have ebbs and flows, right? So just naturally speaking, like you take the politics out of it, just naturally speaking, like people gravitate, there's innovation, there's just better ways to do things after a
Mm-hmm.
while. And I think that if our commitment is clean energy, let's be responsible with our resources, let's
Mm-hmm.
be responsible with the environment, and we're doing it from an equitable standpoint, where, okay, for all these technologies, let's tie that to the people that are shut out of opportunity, because them coming up helps to
Mm-hmm.
like strengthen the overall marketplace. Even when that technology evolves, there are lateral skills that they've built in that journey that is then transferable to what is coming next. To your example, what CETA was doing with their energy efficiency program is very relevant in the solar and clean energy space today.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of energy efficiency, rebates and incentives, all those programs.
Mm-hmm.
So folks that were involved in that period of time, if they stuck it out and were able to like, you know, continue to run their companies, would be best suited to take advantage of
Mm-hmm.
FIJA, take advantage of CEJA, take advantage of the solar development opportunities. We all know that energy storage is next, right? After you have the solar installation, you're going to need to store it and dispatch it in a way that's kind of
Right.
like commercially advantageous. So after energy storage, what's next, right? And all these technologies fold on top of each other. So if you are committed in a very real way to the space, you'll find your niche and continue to survive. So I am somebody that I believe in providing opportunity, but I don't mind attrition either.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't feel like everybody has to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In a specific industry, right? Now there's folks that I've trained through solar that are selling cars,
Mm-hmm.
or folks that trained through solar that are now in hospitality or working at a hospital, or
Mm-hmm.
right. And the training is not just about getting everybody ready for solar. It's about getting, young people that otherwise would be into things that they probably shouldn't be into, and
Got you.
showing them something different, right?
Got you.
And if solar is your pathway, or if clean energy is your pathway, great. But we need to get you tuned into something that is
Something.
productive, not destructive,
Right.
and then use the overall ecosystem to place you where you really need to be. So
Got
I
you.
don't mind people coming in and out of solar. Just go somewhere else and be productive if
Got you.
if that's what you're
Got
gonna
you.
do. Yep.
Well, I just want to say I applaud you and your organization for what you've been doing, the evolutionary
Hmm.
process that you have been, and still evolving. It's not
Appreciate that.
it's a fluid situation,
Hmm.
and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on and tell us about it. So
Yes, indeed.
now I know you did two classes back to back. So what's
Hmm.
next? You got another class after this? What's got coming? You got any events coming up? You doing any job fairs? What's next? I mean, this is a good opportunity to tell the people.
Yes, indeed. So we just wrapped up an employer exchange. We don't do job fairs because they're a little too formal. You set up the booth, the students get a little nervous with shaking their hands with the resume in their
Yeah,
hands,
yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we hosted an employer exchange at our space, and we had about 15 employers from the industry come in, and they would just have these kind of like water cooler discussions with the students. It was very like relaxed. The students got to ask them about the businesses. We made sure that they had kind of like studied up on the companies prior, so they had very like pointed questions to ask. And again, it's about development, right? So whether or not a job comes out of that, you're talking about young people that otherwise wouldn't have had the gumption to have those kind of conversations, building that capacity. And I think that's what's important. Going forward, we have three cohorts coming up, and they will all be running concurrently, starting the month of June. So we will
Okay.
be running, yeah, not back to back, but at the same time. We'll be running three at once. So, if you have a young person that is looking to get into the space, you can feel free to reach out to us at Synergy. That's www.synergy.com. Our company line is 737-301-2656. And you can also email team, at synergy.com. That is SESENERGI.com.
Absolutely. Man, I'm enjoying this, man.
I appreciate
I
it,
love
man.
to see productivity, and people that care about what they're doing. Now, I
For
mentioned
sure.
something to you. I'm just going to throw a whole, because we're running out of time.
Okay.
I'm going to throw a whole scenario out there at you.
Talk to me.
I think in the green room prior to going live, I mentioned to you that I talked to a young person about setting up, electric car charging stations.
Hmm.
Do you think with all of the futuristic electric cars that are coming out, is that a good entrepreneurial avenue to go after?
Absolutely, man. And
Okay.
you don't need a whole lot of space to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have the local banks or the local plazas, right? You get a hold of whoever's in control managing those spaces, and you can approach them and say, hey, allow me to throw a charger or two or three or four on them, and that's residual income while you're going
Right.
and doing whatever it is you're doing for a living. That's mailbox money that's hitting your bank account. So, I think that that's something that folks should, pursue aggressively, and try to make happen. Especially in our communities, because we have a lot of, lots in our areas in Chicago, vacant lots, and the city is looking for productive uses for those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And with the governor pushing to have all electric vehicles by 2050, I think it'll happen a lot faster than that. But where the conversation is headed. So,
Right.
I think that's an opportunity that those that are in position should definitely try to take advantage of, for
Yeah,
sure.
I just wanted to put an entrepreneurial spin on what we were talking about
Yes,
here.
indeed. Yes, indeed. I would. I'm not mad at that at all. But come to me so we can help put your business
There you
plan
go.
together.
There you go. There you go. Take advantage of the resources that are available to you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah, I
indeed.
like that. Keep it coming home. So,
Yes, indeed.
we got about 5 minutes left in the show,
Sure.
and I always like to ask a couple of questions of my
Hmm.
guests.
Hmm.
You know, the first question I like to ask: will you come back and see us again?
Absolutely, man. You're like family at this point. So,
Good.
just let me know when we have an opportunity, and I'm sure I'll have something else that, another technology out there that
So
we
you can
can talk
add
about.
to it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
indeed. Yes,
All
indeed.
right. And the second question is, did we get a chance to talk about everything that you wanted to talk about on this show?
That I think that's why I need to come back because
Okay.
it's so much going on. In terms of um, engaging the communities. I think that's the biggest piece for me is that not all the communities really understand the value, and um, folks see solar or just clean and renewable energy as a transactional piece. So
Mm-hmm.
typically nobody wants a salesperson hunting them down, trying to sell them something. But if we can continue to engage the community in a holistic way, so it's non-threatening and you get a chance to absorb the information and
Right.
decide for yourself, you'll have more adoption. So
Absolutely.
that is what I like to speak about. I'd like to maybe table some of the projects that we're working on, so you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of get a sense for where we are. We're dealing in urban agriculture, but we're also dealing in rural agriculture, right? So there's a way that technology impacts both of those environments, right? What does our technology look like in the medical arena, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what does the resiliency community need from us, disaster response, and things of that nature. So just kind of making sure that folks really understand all the applications outside of just throwing it on your roof and saving a couple bucks from ComEd.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, man, you have put so many things out there. Once again, I applaud you and Osei for what you all have built and building. I can't
indeed.
say thank you enough. As everybody knows, you are a sponsor to this show. So, man, I'm so glad to have you on board, working with us, keeping us going, you know.
Nah, thank you
It's a
for the work you
beautiful,
do.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So, the last question that I got to ask is what would you like to leave with the people before you leave today?
Well, I mean, all I can say is, there's no special, I guess, recipe to, what we do. I think you can feel the intent and the integrity in, what I say and what I do. And it's really like love is the driver for everything that we do. So when you see us out in the marketplace or see us in the street, I just want to request that, you respond to us the way that we responded to you. And that's what love. So we'll leave you with that love.
Absolutely. Good word, man. That's a
Hmm.
good, positive word today.
Yes, indeed.
You be encouraged, stay encouraged, keep up the great work. Man,
Thank you.
we
Thank you.
can't say thank you enough for all that you do and all that you're doing. And I'm sure those 300 people that you have already touched their lives, understand what it's like to be touched by you guys because you guys are a powerful influence in our community, man. So just keep up the great work, you
Thank
know.
you much, man. I appreciate
Yeah,
the support.
my pleasure, my pleasure. So I want you to stay right there while we end the show for today.
Okay.
I want to invite you guys to join me each and every Wednesday on Street News Now. On Street News Now, where we talk about what's going on in the world from our perspective, news commentaries, and every now and then we have a special guest that comes on. So join me tomorrow, right here on the network, where we'll be talking about what's going on in the world. I want to invite you guys out to join me each and every Saturday at 12 noon Central Standard Time from the desk of Dr. Ron, where I get a chance to tell you what's on my mind, what's on my heart, what's going on in my world. And I just want to, keep you guys uplifted and motivated and what to look out for. I want to thank each and every person that have made donations and contributions up to this point in time. Thank you so very much. Can't do it without you guys. Keep up the good work. If you haven't made a donation, do so. These are all the ways that you can do it. While you're here, please subscribe, like, and share. hit that subscribe button, tell somebody about it, share it with somebody. There's a lot to put on the table today. Go back and review it, watch it over again, and then tell somebody, hey man, you need to go check this out, because it's definitely a powerful influence in our community. So that being said, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and watching. I love you, and ain't nothing you can do about it.